businesses we have to try to get them to expand, all right, and to begin talking, communicating with these existing businesses to get them to expand. Teradyne is our top taxpayer in the Commonwealth, in North Reading, in trying to get them to bring more of their activities here is something that I think is worth our while to try to do. But that is what I would recommend doing.
And Mr. Delaney?
Thank you. I think my answer is encompassed in what I previously stated here. The initial way to bring in commercial development is to embark upon a marketing program in which you sell North Reading based upon what we currently have. The geographic location, the demographics of this community, and the economic benefits. The economic benefit being that if commercial business comes in, your tax rate is the same as a residential tax rate. The tax rate is reasonable for a commercial business to come into North Reading. So that's in the short term. You market that. You put that program together. In the long term, my discussions with Greg Balakonis and Dave Hanlon, and I know it's on their priority, is to push Gutierrez to move on the Berry project. That's second in line. Third in line, which will be longer in our plan, would be the wastewater project. That's going to take the most time. And once you get the wastewater project in, as I earlier stated, you build it, they'll come. The wastewater project relieves a lot of burden on a commercial business that would come into town. That wastewater project will be North Reading's long-term success and growth. That particular project is what will cause this town to be a community where commercial business will be dying to get into. And at that point, that's where you, as the taxpayer resident, will see a significant savings on a year-to-year basis once the percentage of commercial businesses in this community rise. And that's based upon the wastewater project, which is affordable and a sensible project, should come in and is in place.
Okay, now, again, if you would like to do a follow-up or rebuttal, would you like another minute? Okay. Mr. Dardano, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I think
Okay. And
I can rebut myself by
no,
saying.
yeah. Okay, we can move on. The next question, I'm going to do a little kind of specific ones in here. On the issue of solid waste, again, this will go to Mr. Dardano first. On the issue of solid waste, do you support a pay-as-you-throw system? And why or why not?
I'll tell you something. Of all the things you get to deal with, the recycling and trash are one of the most that raises the most controversy among people, and raises some really unbelievable questions. It's much more complicated than it seems, in the sense that it's all about the environment, it's all about being green, as well as about cost and about fairness. And my view of the current system is that it is simply not a fair system. Now, my current view of it is that it's a user fee. We're fond of calling it a user fee. Well, let me tell you about user fees. Now, I'm a tax guy, okay? So these items are not minor terms to me, all right? A user fee is all about usage, okay? That's what a user fee is supposed to do. So if you look at most of your user fees, they charge you for what you use, okay? Our trash fee doesn't do that, okay? And that troubles me. I do not like our system the way it is now. The problem is, and I would like to see us change the system. We've had a great deal of talks. I've worked with the committee because this is a matter of great concern to me. I've worked with this committee in trying to come up with ideas. I think there's 4 or 5 alternatives that we've considered, and I do support a change in the system. I think that there are a lot of concerns. I certainly don't want to go back to the sticker system, but I think there's some way we need to make this a fairer system that allows people, encourages recycling, okay, and allows people to pay for what they use, all right? Ideally, if we could, Joe Vino is a big fan of trying to get it on the back into the tax rolls so that you can deduct it. That is a long way off. But absent that, all right, we've got to find some way to make this trash fee fair, and that's my view.
Thank you. And Mr. Delaney, on pay-as-you-throw?
Pay-as-you-throw is an interesting concept. My recent meeting with Dave Hanlon. He and I discussed this particular issue, because I know to the seniors in the audience and those seniors at home, it's a significant issue to them. They're on a fixed income, they have to pay to have their trash picked up on a weekly basis. It's a burden upon them. However, in my discussions with Dave Hanlon, if we went back to a pay-as-you-throw, the stickers are not going to be 60 cents per bag any longer. In fact, the cost would in fact be more as a pay-as-you-throw versus the current system, or the system that we are going to go to, the increased cost associated with the trash. That is why I'll go back to the reason, part of the reason why I'm a proponent of the override passing. So you move that from a fee-based to a tax-based, it becomes tax deductible. It's lesser a burden on the seniors, lesser, and you can deduct it. Everyone can deduct it. So that pay-as-you-throw, on the current concept, as I understand it from Mr. Hanlon, is not the way to go.
Okay, Ms. Mitchner?
I don't think that the flat rate is working. However, I agree the stickers are not the answer either. They didn't work back when we had them. They're not going to work now. It is imperative to this town that we recycle, and the system we have right now does nothing to encourage us to recycle at all. You see, there was one, aside from myself, there was one member of one citizen from North Reading at the selectmen meeting last night in the audience, and she was appalled at the lack of respect for the environment that this system that we currently have enables. She was mentioning we had people, she would see people with 6 barrels out in front of their house, and again, that's simply not fair when you compare it to the seniors that have 1 barrel every other week. So, I mean, the stickers aren't going to work. There's talk of a North Reading bag. I mean, if you look at towns, please don't get aghast. If you look at towns in Japan, they have specific bags. They're see-through. They force you to recycle, and they force you to be very aware of what you're throwing away. Do I think we need to follow that? No, I don't, but I think that the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Okay, anything else, Mr.
Sure.
Taddino?
I think that the bags or the stickers, those are 2 alternatives, but they're not the only alternatives. There's a number of alternatives, and I think that the Board of Selectmen, this group that I've worked with Dave Hanlon and the recycling group, there are a number of alternatives before them, a number of alternatives that they've had to recommend, and I think that the Board of Selectmen will have a number of choices. These are not, I'll tell you, of all the decisions, this is one of the toughest decisions of all, as to what exactly we do with this, because you've got that conflict. You've got the idea of this being the sense of unfairness that's in it. Okay, at the same time, what works? The fact that it's unfair in itself isn't. You need to come up with something that works. And there's a lot of things they proposed. I would certainly be in favor of an adjustment to where we are. I'd be in favor of something that encourages recycling, clearly, and also makes this a true user fee. It's much more tied to what usage is rather than to a flat amount. Thank you.
Mr. Delaney?
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do believe we have to encourage recycling. I haven't done it until recently. My 10-year-old son pushed me to do it, and it's amazing how much you can cut down on your solid waste if you begin to recycle. We once had 4 or 5 bags and 2 barrels. We now have 1 barrel, maybe a bag or 2 a week, and we have 4 barrels of recycle items. It's amazing. But going back to my meeting with Dave Hanlon, in terms of pay-as-you-throw, the other 2 reasons why it's not a good idea, Dave Hanlon, who's been here a long time, going back to the time when we had stickers in this community, he said you would be amazed at the work the DPW crew had to do on a daily and a weekly basis with the illegal dumping that was going on in this community. The hours and hours that his men had to put into just going and cleaning up areas in this town, Ipswich River Park, Martins Pond area, off of Concord Street down here, all those areas. The other thing, it pays you throw if you use a sticker or a bag, when they put that out to the commercial business owners, 3 business owners step forward.
Yay, thank you.
Can I finish
Thank
the
you.
sentence?
Quickly.
Just 3 business owners step forward. Stop and Shop, Shaw's, and Dave Hall, and Raya Store. Only 3 businesses that were willing to participate.
thank you. And Ms. Mitchner?
No further comment.
Okay, thank you. Going on to another subject, public transportation. How would you address the issue of public transportation in this town, in particular, finding some way to enable the ride to come, the MBTA program, the ride to come to North Reading? And that's gonna go to Mr. Delaney first.
Well, the difficulty with that, and I've spoken to, I believe it was my meeting with Greg Balakonis. The problem is the ride doesn't come to North Reading unless you have public transportation that comes into North Reading. It's like Reading, if you live in Reading, you can get the ride to come to your house. And if you need to go grocery shopping, go to a doctor, go to a hospital, it comes. So this is where we go back to a partnership with the state government. We have to talk to Brad Jones, Bruce Tarr, and see whether or not it makes sense, if it's feasible, financially, in other ways, to bring in public transportation. Do you extend the commuter route? There's a whole host of issues associated with that. Is that good? Is it bad? At this point in time, I don't know. It was something that I will investigate, but currently you can't get the ride to come into North Reading because of the fact that we don't have public transportation in North Reading. Would it be something that I would look at, work with the state legislatures, and see whether or not it's feasible in North Reading at some particular point in time? We have a growing senior community in North Reading, and I know that's vitally important. My mother, who's soon to be 78, is taking advantage of it. My father, when he was alive, took advantage of it. They lived in Somerville. Public transportation came to Somerville. Very easy, very minimal cost to the particular person. It's a valuable transportation resource for the seniors in particular.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Mitchner on the public transportation.
I think public transportation is going to become increasingly important, especially as we see the rise in gas prices, and we all become much more aware of what we're doing to our climate with our obsession with our cars. However, I would love to look at it and bring public transportation to North Reading. I'm a little bit hesitant. I know that Brad Jones worked very hard to reduce our fee to the MWTA. Did I say that wrong? The MBTA. He reduced our fee, our membership fee to that drastically, and I would be curious to know what the dollar amount would be on that if we were to establish public transport back into North Reading. Or not back into North Reading, into North Reading.
And Mr. Dardano?
I've done some research in this area for a number of people that have asked me about this over the years, and you know, we had an opportunity some years ago to have the right here, and the town elected not to do that. Now that the time for us to enter that has passed, but I think that the key here is to reinstate that, to begin pushing to get the state to allow us to join that again. The seniors are the fastest growing population in North Reading, faster than all the other groups, age groups, the seniors. And in the meantime, though, to say that that's something we'll do 5 or 6 years from now or whenever, okay, is not an adequate answer, I don't believe. Okay, I think there are things we can do now for seniors. I think we need more support for seniors in general. But I think what we can do is we can provide, by providing sufficient funding, we can provide at least transportation for the neediest members of our senior population within the senior group itself. And that's what I would advocate, is more support to the seniors.
Okay. And any follow-up, Mr. Delaney?
I believe the question dealt with just public transportation in the ride. And once again, what I would caution about is, if you want to bring in public transportation, what else does that bring, potentially could bring to North Reading? What is the cost associated with it? We are in very, very difficult financial times currently. On the horizon, it looks like those times are going to continue. So we have to go back to long-term planning. Does that fit bringing public transportation into North Reading? That's what we have to look at. What is the financial cost? Should we invest? It's something that has to be looked at without jumping into it.
Anything else, Ms. Mitchell?